Hello, I'm Terry Kolath. I'm here today with Queenie, the archivist of the Captiva Historical Society. And we have a wonderful new partnership blooming here starting this summer. We're going to be looking at DVDs that the Historical Society has made so that we can all capture the history of the island right down the road. Thanks for joining me, Queenie.
Thanks so much for having me, Terry.
It's such a pleasure. Christy Anders from the Sanibel Captiva Conservation Foundation introduced us after one of her lectures and said, you should look at some of these DVDs. And I was just so impressed. And I thought, let's bring these to our residents.
Well, we've been really lucky to have Christy on our board of directors for years. And so I'm glad she made the connection. It's a great place for us to be here.
It does. Now, we say that you're Queenie, the archivist. What does an archivist do? Tell us a minute about that.
Well, I started with the Captiva Island Historical Society because my husband, Dave Jensen, is one of the founding directors, and so I built the interest that way. I was their administrative assistant for years, and then just last year morphed into the archivist. I actually take documents, photos, letters, and I digitally archive them on the internet so that they're visible throughout the world now. We have over 10,500 items that people can view anytime, anywhere.
That is just fabulous, and I appreciate it on many levels, Queenie. First of all, what a wonderful use of technology. And second of all, how else would we know about the richness of that island and what it means to a lot of people for a lot of purposes?
Well, can I tell you a little bit about how the Historical Society began?
Sure.
I think it was 2009, one of the Captiva Island residents, Stella Farwell, found out that within the Captiva Library we had Rubbermaid bins of documents, photos that were just living in the library that way. Now, in the event of hurricane, of course, all of those things would be washed away. So it was Stella's mission. She started the Captiva History Project in 2010, and it was her mission to be able to get those items and preserve them in a more permanent fashion. The Captiva History Project morphed into the Captiva Island Historical Society in 2011. And while we started archiving items right away, it wasn't until about 2 years ago that we actually thought that we should share them with the public. Little steps at a time is really what's made our historical society grow into the great thing that it is today.
What are we talking about year-wise, date-wise? When does all this begin?
Gosh, we have items that go back, I believe, to 1908. And, you know, they're copies of deeds, and I think we have some journal writing from 1911. It's just definitely worth people going to the Captiva Island Historical Society.org website. It's very easy to access our archives through that.
And how important it is to preserve that information. I'm so blessed to have a 90-year-old mother and an 11-year-old granddaughter, and to hear her ask her great-grandmother about how things used to be, and to think that your historical society is providing memories like that for people.
This is a living tribute to the people of Captiva Island and the surrounding area too. And we have the great opportunity to be able, for our documentary series, to be able to interview some of the old timers. And it's interesting, when I first moved to Captiva 25 years ago, those old timers, I realize, are my age now. So it's been a neat trip.
Let's talk a little bit about Volume 2. What can we expect? And we will also be meeting Mike Boris, our founding director.
Mike Boris is going to be the one that's opening that program. I'm looking forward to having you get to know him a little bit better too. I think you're really going to like Earth, Water, and Wind, because in this one, Shell Point's friend Christy Anders makes her appearance in our documentary. You'll also meet John Dickey, a landscaper on the island. John Dickey's grandparents they were one of the original, well, I can't say original, one of the foremost members of the early years on Captiva Island. Dr. Dickey was well known, and John Dickey talks about aftermath of Hurricane Charlie. We also are going to, I'm peeking at this, we're also going to meet Dottie Wakefield, whose parents started Tween Waters Inn. Earth, Water, and Wind has a little bit of all of the elements that make Captiva Island interesting.
And perfectly named.
Thank you very much.
Won't you join us for Earth,
Water and wind.
And wind. It will be on Tuesday, June 26th, the second installment as we get to know Captiva Island.